Biden's grin that captured attention on social media, leaving many folks to speculate, why was he so happy?
Donald Trump was welcomed back to the White House by a very enthusiastic Joe Biden today, in an interaction that shocked the world.
And the former president, thank you. Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So good. Welcome back.
We got some of the reaction online. Biden never looked happier. Joe Biden shares the same smile that most of America has.
All right, folks, welcome back. Today, we're diving into a story that's got everyone talking. Joe Rogan has just revealed the real reason why Vice President Kamala Harris didn't want to sit down on his podcast. Yep, you heard that right. Imagine this. One of the most popular political figures in the country turns down the chance to talk directly to millions of people on the biggest podcast in the world. So what's the story behind her decision? Why would her team insist on controlling what she could or couldn't discuss? If you're as curious as we are, grab a snack, sit tight, and get ready for some juicy details. So, here's the scoop. Joe Rogan extended a warm, open invitation to Kamala Harris, offering her a spot on his show where she could answer questions, connect with the public, and maybe even reshape her image. But as soon as her team saw this opportunity, it seemed they started piling on the conditions. And we're not talking about small things. Oh no, the big no-no on that list was her stance on marijuana. Why? Because her record on this issue is, well, let's just say it's complicated. Let's rewind a bit. Kamala Harris has been in the spotlight for years, but her past as California's Attorney General is where things get sticky. This was when she took a hard line on marijuana offenses, putting plenty of people behind bars for minor possession charges. Now, years later, marijuana legalization is gaining massive support across the nation. And that hardline stance, not exactly winning her any popularity points today. In fact, it's one of the issues where she faces the most criticism.
Is that marijuana laws are not applied and enforced in the same way for all people. So for example, African Americans use marijuana at roughly the same rate as whites, but are approximately 4 times more likely to be arrested for possession. That's just not fair. So we need to change the system.
So, naturally, her team didn't want that discussed on a show with an audience of millions. And here's where Joe Rogan didn't hold back.
I have not seen him that happy since the last debate. I mean, I'm not even trolling. I mean, if you're Kamala Harris, what are you thinking right now? I mean, they were saying he's a fascist, Trump's a threat to democracy, this and that. And yet, do you smile that happily when you're next to someone who you think, ostensibly is evil? It kind of shows everything they were saying was just kind of a lie. I mean, it was incredible. I have not seen Biden that happy in a long, long time.
And it's not just a ritual. And I have to say, I think if it had been a couple hours later and the Matt Gaetz news had broken, I'm not sure the grin would have been as wide. But they both said the right things. What they next did, I think they met for 2 hours. And that's the really important part. And the one thing I would say is I hope that the president-elect took to heart some of what Joe Biden said, even if he disagrees with it. Because if you remember, President Obama told President-elect Trump to watch out for Mike Flynn. And it turned out that Mike Flynn was fired 23 days after the election started and ended up, being found guilty.
On his show, he shared how Kamala's team seemed eager to keep things controlled, changing dates, adjusting times, and making sure they had their do not mention list ready. It's no surprise he felt like this was a missed opportunity. Rogan even pointed out that by trying to avoid this issue, she's only making it worse for herself. Nothing screams transparency like hiding your record, he joked. And honestly, isn't that what we're all thinking? Think about it.
There was a question about why she wouldn't do the Rogan interview. And a lot of things went back and forth. And apparently Rogan wanted her in Texas, and they said, let's do it for an hour. Well, he finally answered it. Let's go ahead and play the clip from his explanation.
They had, I don't know how many conversations with my folks.
Right.
But multiple conversations, giving different dates, different times, different this, different that. And we knew that she was going to be in Texas. So I said, open invitation. I think they had requirements on things that she didn't want to talk about. She didn't want to talk about marijuana legalization, which I thought was hilarious.
Why?
Like, that's so... because of her prosecuting record. And, you know, she put a lot of people in jail for weed.
You had that, and you had this from one of the spokesmen. There was a backlash with some of our progressive staff that didn't want her to be on it and how there would be backlash.
Joe Rogan's podcast is the ultimate stage, with more reach than most cable news shows. Politicians don't get a platform like this every day, especially one that could bridge the gap between Washington's elite and everyday folks. So why avoid it? By not taking this opportunity, she's sending a message, intentional or not, that she's more interested in playing it safe than facing tough questions. And that's the last thing people want to see in a political leader right now. This decision by Kamala Harris's team highlights a deeper issue, a trend of playing it safe that we've seen in so many campaigns. In today's political climate, voters are tired of cautious, scripted answers.
And Rogan was happy to have a conversation with Kamala Harris. But according to Rogan, who just revealed new details about his overtures to the Kamala campaign, Harris's handlers were nervous about doing the interview after he told them it would be unedited. Take a listen.
Look, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to Kamala Harris. I'm like, I bet there's a person in there. I bet I can get to that person.
Yeah.
I wanted to find that person. I don't want to hear all the speeches. I don't want to hear, I was raised middle class. I don't want to hear any of that.
She's a roller skater. You know that?
No, I would love to find that out.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to her about all kinds of I literally said, like, because there was a few restrictions of things they didn't want to talk about, but I said, I don't give a I go, get her in here. Like, whatever you want to talk about. And they want to know if I edit. I'm like, there's not going to be any editing. There's no editing.
Yeah.
We're not going to edit. But
yeah, that's the same thing they asked us. Is there an edit? You know?
I just wanted to talk. I feel like you give someone a couple of hours and you start talking about anything, I'm going to see the pattern of the way you think.
They want real talk, unfiltered conversations, and leaders willing to be vulnerable. Instead, we're seeing more controlled narratives from Kamala's camp, which is starting to look out of touch. You've got politicians out here willing to tackle tough questions head-on, while her team seems intent on avoiding the elephant in the room. But here's the twist. It wasn't just about marijuana. Apparently, her team had a list of other topics they wanted to steer clear of. We're talking healthcare, criminal justice, you name it. Anything that could spark a bit of controversy was considered off-limits. Now, can you imagine the public reaction if she did appear on Rogan's podcast, but avoided all these hot topics? It would be like an episode with all filler and no meat. And let's be real. This whole situation has sparked a serious backlash. People aren't just rolling their eyes. They're questioning why celebrities and politicians, people who are supposed to be representing the public, seem so intent on skirting around the issues that actually matter. We've got high grocery bills, high gas prices, and inflation rising like crazy. People want answers, not political doublespeak. Then you've got Rogan himself, a guy who's known for calling things as he sees them. When he got wind of Kamala's conditions, he took it as a sign of her team's overly cautious approach. He pointed out that it's this exact behavior that creates a disconnect between politicians and voters, and Rogan's fans. They weren't shy about sharing their thoughts either. Comments poured in about how out of touch it felt, with fans saying, "If you're hiding from questions, how are we supposed to trust you?" Others simply expressed disappointment, feeling she missed an opportunity to show a more authentic side. The public's reaction is telling. A lot of people are fed up with politicians who seem more focused on controlling the narrative than actually addressing issues head-on. And it's not just Kamala. This is a growing trend in politics. There's a massive appetite right now for leaders who can stand in the hot seat and speak candidly. That's why this decision to avoid Rogan's platform is rubbing so many people the wrong way. So, what does all of this say about the direction we're heading in? This isn't just a story about Kamala Harris. It's a window into a much larger conversation about transparency, political strategy, and the changing expectations of voters. People are tired of feeling like they're being talked down to, like they're being fed a polished script. They want to hear from leaders who aren't afraid to face tough questions and show a bit of humanity in the process. It's funny how these days, politics and celebrity culture seem to go hand in hand, but not necessarily in a good way. Big-name endorsements, social media campaigns, and PR teams that rival Hollywood studios. It's like every politician wants to be a star.
Here, I would say that the idea that she didn't go into, I won't say the lion's den, but the fox's den is a little crazy, because she sat with your colleague Brett Baer, which is more than President Trump did the other way around. The one thing I will say is that I am sure there was discomfort with some of the people that he has had on his show, including Alex Jones.
But as we're seeing now, that star power doesn't always translate into public trust. This situation is a reminder that people want substance over showmanship. So, where does this leave us? The way Kamala Harris's team handled this invitation has definitely raised some eyebrows, and it's a move that people won't soon forget. Whether she realizes it or not, every decision like this shapes public perception, and as much as we might want to brush it off, these small choices tell us a lot about where her priorities lie. Now, we're all left wondering, will she step up to the plate and tackle these issues head-on in the future? Or is this just a sign of what's to come? All right, folks, now it's your turn. What do you think? Should politicians take these kinds of risks and face the public, even if it means tough questions? And do you think Kamala's decision will impact how people view her moving forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Stay tuned, because here at Channel Name, we've got all the latest stories you won't hear anywhere else.